Okay. I'm going to talk again about the Fuji X100T. There's absolutely no slant against the X Pro 2, but I'm going to be getting rid of my X Pro 2. I know that actually Fuji's going to be updating the firmware on the X Pro 2 in October to improve the autofocus so that it is up to the speed of the X-T2. But I have so much Fuji stuff right now, and this actually fills in the gap of the X Pro 2. Well, it certainly doesn't have the autofocus speed. I mean, that's obvious and unquestioning. You know, I'm going to be grabbing at least one X-T2 as soon as it hits the market, if not two. You know, so I will have, you know, the X100T, the X10, the X-T10, a couple X-T1s, the X100T, and at the very minimum, one X-T2 with a vertical grip, because I'm a vertical grip slut. I've discovered a few things, and I've got some hardcore time now on the Fuji X100T. I love this hand strap. I'm the first person in the world to make a hand strap like this for the X100T. Obviously, you do have to have the grip extension, which is the MHG X100. This is a removable grip swell that fits on the bottom. It adds, I don't know, about 10 millimeters of height, or a little bit less than that, to the base of the X100T. There are only a couple things that I have a bitch about. One, and everybody else complains about it, is that the LED back here at the window, it'll actually flash orange and red when it's like buffering stuff to the card, and everybody covers that up with gaffer's tape, and I plan on doing that. It is extremely bright. I think Fuji should actually dim that down. And another thing a lot of other people have complained about, and it's just that's something that's really pissy, really, and that is that the on-off switch. Boy, whatever you think of me, baby, you know I've had my hands on a lot of cameras over the many years, and ain't never seen a camera so easy to switch on accidentally than the X100T. So you need to either increase the tension, or what this does is it needs a little bit more lip on the magnesium chassis, because the way this is, it is not actually flush with. It does actually extend, and it is insanely easy to accidentally turn on, and that is why people that have actually owned it for a long time, not like noobs that aren't used to it, is like, damn, this is too easy to turn on. I mean, it's just too easy to turn on. So I think that is something that Fuji definitely does need to fix. There was one really obscure video about eliminating out aperture chatter, which was the real bitch on the Fuji, and you still do have that. Anything outside of manual mode in single autofocus, anything outside of that you do. But in single autofocus, if you set the lock button, and you could see the video I made today on that, thanks to Yosef, I did a deep web search on this. There's one video, and most people said this does not work because the video was incomplete. And everybody said, I tried this, it didn't work. There's only one posting about this on a Fuji board. I mean, there's nothing out there anywhere about eliminating aperture chatter. It's where the aperture is constantly doing this number, so I can let in enough light for exposure. So when you're in single mode and you take a shot, the aperture is always doing, and that causes a time delay. And by doing the little trick that I made a video on today, you can reference back on how to do it, and I'll show you what it changes, and it makes it radically faster. For street photography, it's like, yeah, boy. So thanks to Josef in Slovakia. Love the folks in Slovakia, by the way. You know, the whole area. Nikola Tesla and the folks of, yeah, really do love those peeps. After a lot of time, I've been out shooting hardcore past few days on this unit, and can't do infrared photography with this, but I didn't buy it to do infrared photography, because it does have a hot spot if I were to try to do infrared photography. Oh, by the way, another little tip is that everybody should actually you have to buy this bezel before you buy this lens hood. The metal lens hood that comes with this, everybody else ends up, because it falls off easy and it's rather expensive to replace, so never use that. What you need to do is replace it with replace the bayonet. Then you have to the standard mount for the front of the lens, and you have to get this extender piece, which actually pulls the front away enough so you can put a filter on it. But even if you don't use a filter, to be able to mount the lens hood on there, But to actually put a lens cap on there, you'll need to get one of these lens caps. There are a few people that make them. This is one by Hama, where the center sections squeeze in instead of the edges, so that way you don't actually have to take the front lens hood off. You can just reach in there and pinch and pull and yank it off and stick it in your pocket. So that's something I do recommend, and ditch that metal lens hood that falls off and is expensive to replace. None of this stuff is actually important to the utilitarian use of the camera that I've been talking about the past few minutes. I've talked about that quite extensively, and nothing has changed except that I've actually fallen more in love with this camera. And the hardcore pro shooters, I mean, I knew I wanted one for the sole reason of the fact that it was a leaf shutter, and I knew that it was not a fast autofocusing machine, but it's not made for that. That is what the X-T2 is designed for. I've had my hands on an X-T2 for about 3 minutes total, and that was long enough. And I saw that the autofocus is just smoking fast. And of course I'll be one of the first dudes on the block with one, and then probably another one. But I'm going to be getting rid of my X Pro 2. No slant against the X Pro 2. The X Pro 2 does not have a leaf shutter. Yes, it is way faster autofocus than the X100T. But between the X-T2 or 2s that I'm getting and this camera and you know, an X-T1 or 2, which I've already got a couple X-T1s, and an X-T10, so that's why I'm going to be getting rid of the X Pro 2, because this fills in that magic spot of the X Pro 2, not for autofocus speed, but for what it is and what my use profile characteristic of the camera is and was meant to be for purchasing it to begin with, which is as a street camera, as a rangefinder. You know, I know now more fully. I mean, I already knew because of the leaf shutter. I mean, you know, syncing, using any of the dumbest flashes on earth and being able to do true high-speed sync photography with the leaf shutter on this camera was reason enough alone for me to want to buy it. But then I found out just there is a je ne sais quoi. There is a nature of a camera that does not show up on a specification sheet. People are like, oh, it's got slow autofocus. It's like, yeah, but you don't get it. It's kind of like, you know, running across an old hardcore sports car, but it gets like bad gas mileage, and you know, not the fastest. But she's like, you don't get it, man. Just driving in this thing is a pleasure. It kind of like adds a spectrum. There's an invisible spectrum of pleasure in a camera that does not show up on a specification chart that makes it a pure joy to use, and that is a blending, just like the perfect soup. You know, you could have two people make soup with the exact same ingredients. One tastes like crap and one tastes awesome. It can't. This camera won't show up on a spec sheet. What this camera got won't show up on a spec sheet. You actually have to experience it and taste it for yourself, and you're like, oh my God, now I get it. You know, why the hell does everybody own this camera that doesn't have, you know, blazing? You know, it does not have blazing fast autofocus. However, you switch over from optical viewfinder to electronic viewfinder, things speed up a lot. And it's not bad at all. And I've discovered all the tips and tricks on this camera, including the very, very last elusive one on eliminating aperture chatter. And that was like, yeah. And then doing this mod with the Dremel tool, where I actually ground out a little bit of metal that let me attach my now famous hand strap that I absolutely love to death, because I love these Fuji hand straps. But, you know, this doesn't have a vertical grip on it. I mean, this is kind of a vertical grip, but there's a loop down here, a hole, but it wasn't big enough, because what would happen is if I just attached it, when I went to go open up the cover for the battery door and the SD card, it would not let me do that. And so I had to grind out a little bit of metal, and I showed that to you in a video earlier today. So this camera has been an absolute dreamboat. I love the piss out of it. And it is more than the sum of its parts. It's kind of like weighing a corpse and a live body. It's like, well, they're both the same, you know. It's like, no, but that one's dead, you know. They might both have the same specs. You see, that's what people don't get. They're like, I'm going to go down the spec chart of that camera. And, you know, it's like, no, you don't get it. That's like going down the specification chart of a beautiful dead woman. It's not this camera. Another camera. It's like, oh, you know, she's 5'8" and she's beautiful and blonde and, you know, nice, you know, just awesome. And it's like, yeah, that's only what's on the specification chart. She's beautiful, but she's dead. So the stuff doesn't show up on a specification chart, and that's what people don't get about this camera. And now I fully get it. I mean, I knew it was there because the people that I actually trust what they're not corporate shills and d-bags. They're like real photographers. The people that love the dog piss out of this camera, I mean, they just think it's just tougher than woodpecker lips. People that I'm not going to name off any of them, but you could guess what they are. And they're certainly not the other people. Okay? The people that I know I can trust. It's like, man, they love the hell out of this camera. There must be something to it there. More so than just the awesome, super-duper magic of a leaf shutter and what a leaf shutter could do. There's something else there. And so I've got a lot of hours on it. I don't know what you define by a lot. I haven't been shooting with it for that long, but I've actually put some hard mileage on this camera. I've stuck more than a few thousand clicks on it since I've received it. And the elimination of the aperture chatter, wonderful. My famous hand strap mod, the fact that I could do that with this camera, awesome. I love this. I love it to death. It's my favorite way of shooting. And anyway, I ramble on unnecessarily. So that is my full circle 360-degree review of the Fuji X100T. It's been a bucket full of wonderful unicorn dust and leprechaun gold. It's been awesome. So, and I'm not getting rid of my X Pro 2 because it is deficient in any way. It's because this fills in the magic hole and space that my X Pro 2 was filling in. And I don't care the fact that the autofocus is slower on it, you know. I did not have the X Pro 2 for its blazing fast autofocus, nor do I have this for its blazing fast. I've got it for other reasons that make it magical. Said people don't get it. The people that write books on cameras, the one thing that we agree on, even if we don't like each other, and I'm not going to name a few people, I could, is that we agree on one thing. The one thing that noobs don't get is that the really important stuff is not on a specification chart of sheet or chart of cameras. You know, it's got this many megapixels. It's exploited. No. You know, okay, that's that. That doesn't tell you whether it's alive or not. You know, kind of like the pretty girl with the awesome body on her. It's like, yeah, she's got a great spec sheet, but she's dead. So. Some people are into that. No. Not me. No. Anyway, bye.